companies started to compete with banks. And customers used to compare banks with banks. But this doesn't happen anymore.
The webinar is CX, Banking, and the Future. Of course, we're going to have a focus on the insights for innovation, what we are going to have in the future and where we are heading specifically in the banking and financial industry.
Now you get one company that is trying to do well in their field, but they do it on such a massive scale that they are disrupting your business. Almost 30% of the properties in central Florence listed on Airbnb. 30%.
Make a good one, as Loaay says.
This restriction is a gift. Nothing I'm going to say to you today is right, and nothing I'm going to say to you today is wrong.
Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. And we really appreciate your time. And of course, we apologize for the reschedule of the program due to the passing and the funeral of our late Amir, which will pass until I think the mid or the 26th of January as 40-day mourn. So thank you for being here with us today. And I would like to, of course, thanks our banks and all our friends and participants from other organizations. We appreciate you and your time for being with us here. So if we want to introduce for our webinar today, the webinar is the CX, Banking, and the Future. Of course, we're going to have a focus on the insights for innovation, what we are going to have in the future and where we are heading specifically in the banking and financial industry. Our panelist today is, or let's say the keynote speaker, Mr. Loaay Ahmed, which I will introduce him in a mere moment. So let's see our agenda for today. The agenda, of course, we're going to welcome you all. And this is how I'm going to introduce, of course, in a mere moment, Mr. Loaay. We're going to have a specific section about the case for CX as a business strategy. Of course, also, we're going to have the role of AI in CX. We're going to have a specific segment about the current and the future trend. At the end, of course, we're going to have the Q&A. And of course, during the whole session, if anyone has any question, please try to write it in the panel. Paul, I'm going to check it out, and maybe you can, if you don't want to wait until then, we will allow, of course, you to ask your question unless you want to keep it to the end. However, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. And of course, for the program, we're going to have a certificate, digital certificate, which will be sent to you later on, of course, next week after we're going to finalize the whole participant list or attendees for this webinar. Housekeeping rules for today's webinar. Of course, this is our first webinar for this semester. It's your last webinar if you are going to the end of year 2023. However, it's our first. We're going to have series of webinars for the coming year. We started from now, ahead of time, ahead of everyone, because we want to be a little bit advanced, proactive, and foreseeing what's coming in the future. Some housekeeping rules. Of course, I'm going to mind your T&T, which is time, and of course, any kind of tone. Yeah. If you have anything going here or there, please raise it up to us in the chatting room. We're going to, of course, check it out from the panelists from our side. Another thing that I need to remind you, which I'm sure you are all professional and knows that during any webinar, specifically with this kind of webinars, we need your focus. We need you to be away from your phone, mobiles, of course, office phone, mobiles, and emails, any kind of distraction, to be focused with Mr. Loaay, because you're going to gain a lot in this 80 to 90 minutes. So we don't need any barrier during this session that blocking you from getting any kind of new intense information. A little bit about Loaay Ahmed. Loaay, of course, a little bit before we start the official introduction, Loaay is very dear, let's say, a mentor for us, me and some of the key people in IBS and in the industry. I know Loaay, I think, for 15 or 20 years now, and we never have the chance to have him in IBS or KIPS, but now we have the chance to have him officially being one of our keynote speakers for webinars, and this is his own webinar, and this is his own bread and butter. Let me tell you a little bit about Loaay. Loaay is a strategic business therapist and director of the Outsider's Perspective, an innovation strategy consultancy based in UK, London. He holds a master's degree with distinction, of course, in service design innovation from UAL, University of Arts, London, with more than 28 years of practical experience. Loaay uses service design, design thinking, strategic brand definition, and other frameworks. All these things has been used by Loaay to teach postgraduates approaches to business innovation and to enable organizations to create services, improve processes, and transform customer experience. Over the years, he has assisted and trained managed teams in many local and international brands such as Volvo, Salesforce, Bergen Bank, Mabani, Life Sciences Academy, Bobian Bank, and Tesco, just a few names, not all of them. Loaay is also a fellow of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufactures, and Commerce, of course, in United Kingdom. So we are very pleased to have Loaay with us today. And I want to hand over the mic to Loaay now to start the webinar.
Thank you. For making this event possible. And of course, with the help of Mariam Hamed, last but not least, Rana Nebari, and the rest of the amazing KIPS team. I'm happy to be here with you today. It's, I think, about 8 degrees right now in the UK, where I am. And it just got sunny about, like an hour ago. Now, of course, I would like to thank you all for giving me your time and attention. I'll do my best to use it wisely. I would like to start by showing you this. You go on your online banking to log in, and then what happens is you find an offer. This is just a hypothetical offer. We're talking about 1% limited offer, transfer money from your card to your account, 2 days left active. Usually the percentage is more, they're giving you a limited offer. But let's say that you say, no, I'm not interested. This was on a browser. You logged into your account. Okay. What happens is later on during the day, you went on your mobile phone, and then only to find out that the same offer is being given to you. So you are at this point wondering, why am I getting the same offer twice? But anyway, you choose not to use it and you move on with your online banking. Only later on, you go to the branch and you find out that your account manager or the teller is handing you a flyer and saying, do you know about our offer? So at this point, when this happens, customers feel that the bank is not listening to them. And they feel that the channels are not connected with each other. And even with the best intentions, that makes customers feel that the bank doesn't really understand what's happening with them. And they're too big to pay attention to that, to their own experience, to their customer experience. So when that happens, we disconnect. However, as far as CX is concerned, the next big goal is to have the experience personalized, seamless, and unified. And of course, that means we're talking about across all channels, offline and online. What happens with me in the branch should be reflected in other channels. They should be informed. Everything should be connected. This is what organizations are trying to do, not just in banking, but across all businesses in terms of B2C CX. Words like omni-channel are used a lot, where everything is going across all channels. However, there are different systems. So connecting all these systems together is quite essential. Recently, there was an article by David Edelman from Harvard Business School. He called it intelligent CX. Like where he, like at this point, saying that if you are not connected, if all the channels are not connected together, the customer experience is not smart enough for the customer. So it's important now that we get to a point where it becomes seamless and personalized. You might say, of course, personalized is going to be difficult. How can we achieve that when we are dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Just a quick note about my slides that you will see. They are bare by design. So you will not find a lot of information. There's not a lot of text. So basically, let's focus on what we are communicating, or what I'm communicating rather, because that's how you will get the most of it. If you are on your phone, no worries, the text is large enough, but even if you can't read any of it, just stay focused on what I'm saying, and you will be able to go through this and follow wonderfully. In the traditional sense, banks used to compete with banks, and customers used to compare banks with banks. But this doesn't happen anymore. If a bank is not understanding the scope of competition, it's missing a lot. On a bank-to-bank level, the comparison happens on a product level. But when it comes to CX, banks are compared to others, like, for example, hotels, gyms, shops, cafes, telecom, you name it. Whatever the customer is experiencing in any business nowadays, they are comparing that to the experience they have with other businesses as well. So there's a mindset now going on. Well, if the hospital can get this right, if my kid's school can get this right, if the gym can get this right, why can't get the bank, treat me the same way? Why can't they do that? If I can pay seamlessly where I'm standing, at an Apple store, why the supermarkets let me go to a cashier? There's this constant mentality of comparing what's happening in one industry and comparing it with another. Because it's the same customer who's seeing now what is possible everywhere. And because of that, they want that, whatever the best case scenario is, they want that spread everywhere. And because of the fact that everybody else is trying to push the customer experience so well, it ends up sometimes where one industry is affecting another. And an example of that is Airbnb. In Florence, in Italy, wonderful city. If you haven't been to it, I urge you to go. Florence, in Florence, Italy, there's about almost 30% of the properties in central Florence listed on Airbnb. 30% of these properties are listed on Airbnb. So what happens in this case is that the locals are out of central Florence. And because of that, you find that they're being replaced by those who are temporary residents. As a result, local businesses got affected. The regulars are not regulars anymore, including banks. There are branches of banks that are in central Florence that are finding drop in traffic because their customers are no longer there. They're still their customers and they're going to other branches, but they are no longer there. So in this case, as if you trying to compete with other banks is not enough, now you get one company that is trying to do well in their field, but they do it on such a massive scale that they are disrupting your business. So now, as a bank, you have to pay attention not only to your competitors, what they're doing, but you have to pay attention to what others are doing. Another example, in Africa, telecom companies started to compete with banks because they started to use credit and hours and money and minutes and packages and transfer money as a service between their own customers. So if we are both on the same network, I can send you money, you can send me money. And so now a bank in Africa is competing with a telecom. So we constantly have to be aware of what's happening around us, not just in the banking industry, in order for us to compete. But in order to stand out, that means we need to be different. Gabrielle Chanel, of the famous brand, she once said, to be irreplaceable, one must be different. So in this case, banks are heavily regulated. We all know that. This restriction is a gift because it forces banks to strategically focus on how to differentiate themselves. While, of course, banks cannot control regulations, CX is an area that the bank can fully use to grow. And this is where we are today. We're trying to, now, of course, some of you might be already familiar with CX. Some of you are not fully aware of it or how to control it. Some of you are already in CX departments. But the purpose today is to let you see my mind into my mind into how I see CX and where CX can go into the future. Okay, and for that, I want you to really pay attention to a point in such in business. Business is a social study, is something that that humans do, and it is not something that has right and wrong. It is something that has good and bad. Some decisions can be good, some decisions can be bad, depends on timing, circumstances, etc. So if you hear something today that you disagree with, by all means, ask a question, make a point. But at the same time, just because you might disagree with a point, it doesn't mean that that point is right or wrong, or that you are right or wrong, or that I'm right or wrong. Nothing I'm going to say to you today is right, and nothing I'm going to say to you today is wrong, because it is just not possible. What works for one organization doesn't work for the other. So as simply as that. So I want you to keep an open mind today to everything that you're hearing. I want to introduce you to say hello to this customer. Usually, your customers, I know that we have telecom today with us. We have mostly banks and a few other organizations. But in general, as far as B2C is concerned, your customer is interacting with you. The interaction happens through the different touch points, website, branch, a pop-up place, like social media, etc. These are all touch points. These touch points combined are basically what is called the customer journey. So in the customer journey, as humans, we can only experience these touch points through our senses. So through our sight, through our ears, through nose, scent marketing is a big industry. Like when I enter your branch, what do I smell? Okay. Through touch, what do I hear? And taste. If you're, if you're offering me something to drink, something to eat as a snack, what would that reflect about you? What do I see around? All these senses are important. The temperature plays a role. The time and the duration plays a role. How long I take to get something done with you, and what time your branch is open affects sometimes how I feel about you. Metro Bank, for example, here in the UK, when they first launched, and they continued like that up to the pandemic. The pandemic forced them to change a bit, but up to the pandemic, they were open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. straight through. And they closed only on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, 2 days in the year, as the branches. And they were open 12 hours, straight through. So that time and duration really makes a difference to how I experience and my journey, or how I go about it. These senses that I'm going through, these touch points and interactions that I'm going through, they develop thoughts and feelings in the customer's mind. These thoughts and feelings, like what I think about these touch points, what I think about my journey, how I feel about it, combined together, that's what CX is. So the customer experience is a perception, is the customer's perception of their interactions with the brand. It's a perception. So perceptions that means as an impact on the mind, perception can be stronger or can be weaker. So one of the things that make these perceptions stronger is if they are shared. Shared experiences are stronger. If you remember, if you travel with friends or family, your recollection of that trip is much stronger than a trip that you have done by yourself. So usually shared experiences are much stronger. However, the focus now is just, we're not talking necessarily about shared experiences. I'm just giving you a side note of what affects the memory of that perception. Now, this perception, the customer experience, cannot happen with customers without the support of operations. All the other departments have to come together. Everybody have to do their job in order for all these touch points to actually take place. From the smallest things, as the cleaners have to be there to keep the branch clean before we open, all the way to IT, to finance, to HR. Everybody has to come together in order for us to be able to provide these touch points in the way that makes the customer journey. However, deciding on these touch points, what they should be and what they should say, is something that happens through service design. Now, when I'm talking about service design, I'm talking about not service in the sense of customer service. I'm going to come to explain that in a second. But I'm talking about service design as in, you're a bank. I know in the banking industry, you like to call what you offer as products. But in reality, products have been dead for the past 30 years. Everything that you do have as something you hold in your hand as a product is actually providing a service that allows you to have a certain experience. So your bank account is not something that you can hold in your hand. Your ATM card is something you can hold in your hand, but that's not the product. What you have is that having an account enables you to be able to live your life and go and pay for things. So it's a service. So we're talking about these, what you call products, those are services. Those services, how they're designed, how you want the customer to experience them, is what makes the customer journey. So that is how it shows to the customer. So in reality, you can't actually control the customer experience. You can only influence it. But what you can do is you can design your service to have or to give your customers a better experience. So service design, if you want, the scientific kind of like approach to defining it is basically everything in terms of thinking, planning, producing of the service to deliver it in such a way that is meaningful and engaging as an experience to the customer, and of course profitable to the organization. So every single detail that involves with how I'm going to use this service is service design. Once I go through it, I have thoughts and feelings, and that forms my perception of my experience. Hence, you have one account to offer, one savings account, one investment account. That's one. It doesn't change. But how people feel about them, how they think about them, about the same one, about the same account, differs from one person to another. All right. So we have a few comments here. One is saying physical experience is important, of course, because we can only experience things through our senses. So by default, even online experience becomes physical because you have to see it with your eyes or hear it in order for you to experience it. So by all means, the more senses you use in general, the stronger the impact on the experience on the customer. So I hope you understand here from this point that what I'm trying to convey to you, that in order for you to influence CX, you have to make sure that your design is, your service is well designed. It's only by designing your service very well, the experience can be also a strong one. But where does customer service come in? Because usually there's a misunderstanding of customer experience and customer service. Customer service is an area that can be part of one of the customer journey if needed. There could be a problem. The customer has an issue, so they will come to you and they will try to ask for help. In this case, they're dealing with a customer service team. And please, when you hear a lot of organizations bragging about how many agents they have in their customer service teams, that's a bad sign. The larger your customer service department is, basically the poorer your service design is. Because if you have a very strong service design, the customers having a great customer experience, then they wouldn't need customer service so much. So if you have a lot of customer service calls, a lot of complaints, a lot of interactions with customer service staff on WhatsApp or what have you, it's a sign, it's an indication that there's something that needs to be addressed as far as service design is concerned. So maybe I will not have a problem. There's no need. I don't have any issues or anything. So in this case, I don't need customer service, but still I'm having my customer experience. So it could be part of the customer experience, but it's not necessarily so, and it's definitely not the same. Okay. Now, CX, when it comes to profit, banks are hesitating. I'm talking about banks in Kuwait. Outside, it's a slightly different story, but banks in Kuwait are hesitating. They're still playing and toying with the idea of customer experience. How do we go about it? What do we want to do? Is this really a project? It's not a project. Customer experience is a way of work, is a strategy, is a mindset. You either want to work through the lens of customer experience and service design, or you don't. But what happens usually is you are, whether you like it or not, are in the business of doing of customer experience and service design. It usually starts with you being in one position every year and you have goals that you want to achieve as an organization. And there's a gap. How do I get to where I want to get to? Now, if you actually have engaged good quality employees, and you can enable them to work and do great service design, to design the services very well, what happens is the customers will have great CX. As a result of them having great CX, the organization gets repeat sales and more referrals, word of mouth, etc., and that achieves strong financial results. And when you achieve strong financial results, and when you have a lot of repeat sales and referrals, employees feel better because they feel that they're able to achieve things. They can see that what they do matters to the organization, and that helps them to do more. So it's a cycle. And also the bank or the organization invests more in the employees, and that allows them to do more, and it keeps growing. It's a great way for you to achieve the financial results that you want. Prouder employees also lead to lower turnover of employees. And that's huge. Of course, reaching these results means more bonuses for everyone. So it's really a win-win. If you focus on CX, the organization makes profit, employees feel better, everybody wins. I'm getting a request here. There is a point here about the difference on how different target audiences and generations are affected and absorbed by experiences. We will come to talk about that later. So the differences are not necessarily generational only, and this is a very basic way of looking at personas and demographics. And get two people who are 25 years old, they're not going to necessarily have the same needs. Just because they're 25, it doesn't mean that their needs are the same. So segmentation happens more behaviorally and based on needs rather than based on age and demographics. Just to reflect, since we're dealing with banks today and we know that numbers are important, I just want to show you numbers from research that shows that any small effort, any modest improvement in CX can result in tremendous internal and external value, financial and otherwise, for the organization. So what we're looking at here is, or banks in this case, the third tier that we see in the chart, once they start to pay attention to CX properly and really work internally across all departments to make sure that everything is seamless and everybody's focused on CX, we can see an increase between 14 to 38% over 3 years. That is compound revenue increase. And that comes in different areas. So for example, in additional purchases. So in this case, I might take a loan, I might open a savings account, I might invest, I might, so in this case, we're talking about horizontal and vertical. We're also looking at less churn. Less churn means the ratio of people leaving the bank to go somewhere else. You might say, well, it's difficult for many of my customers to leave because they have a loan with me. Well, in this case, that's a false market share. We're talking about the ones who can leave. They often do leave if they are not happy where they are. And then the third area is new businesses that come from recommendations. I'm a customer here in the UK of Metro Bank, and I keep talking about them all the time. Genuinely, I keep talking about them all the time because this bank is different than traditional banks in the UK. So when I'm doing that, I'm encouraging other people to basically do the same. And quite often, they end up saying, oh, I never knew about that. That's interesting. I'll keep that in mind. That happens naturally when people are connected. So is there money in CX? Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about how challenging it is for organizations. I'm going to show you a chart, but before I do, I'm going to launch a poll, and I want you to answer. You can choose as many answers as you want, and your answers are anonymous. I don't know who you are. There's no way for me to get the who said what. So feel free to reflect about your own organization honestly and openly. Just tell me what the challenges that are stopping you or you're facing as far as CX is concerned. If you see a reason that you say, yep, that's something we're going through, click it. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a minute to do that. And then I'm going to share the results on the screen. And then I'll show you also research what it shows so you can compare between Kuwait market. And I know we have a couple of people also from outside Kuwait, but in general to compare the region with the UK and US market and for you to see what's happening. I see so far the largest one is coming to be lack of clear customer experience strategy. The results keep changing because this is live data, but I also see conflict across internal organizations. I see limited funding. I see lack of important skills in the organization, lack of incentives and rewards, unclear understanding of customers. Great. I see. Okay, so I'm going to stop if you haven't answered now. As you can see here, these are the results. I'm not surprised by them, but it seems the largest one here is lack of clear customer experience strategy. It's healthy to see that, and it's quite slightly different from the results I will show you now from the US and the UK market. That's interesting, actually. Now, here is what the US and the UK market survey. The largest by far is other competing priorities. So, and in this case, we're talking about there's always something going on. Oh, there's a campaign going on. Oh, we need to update this system here. We need to do this. We need to do that. Yeah, so we'll pay attention to CX later. So, or we have a crisis. Our investments are not doing well, so we need to pay attention to that. And usually, there's always something, whether it's positive or negative, that is distracting banks from paying attention to CX. Part of it is, as you guys have answered, lack of a clear understanding of what CX is, what kind of strategy to give it, how do we understand our customers, how much do we even fund this, all that. Do we have the right skills? Do we have the people for this? That mystery makes management not invest and not get involved. What's happening in exchange is that they are losing a lot of potential. If you're happy with your financial results from last year, imagine what you could be doing in terms of performance had you started to pay attention to designing your services in a way that result in strong CX. So how do we do that? How do we make these challenges become easier? Well, one technology that now made things a lot easier is AI, artificial intelligence. Now, in the simplest form, way of explaining what AI is basically the ability of computer systems to perform tasks that typically require a large amount of data and human intelligence. That's what artificial intelligence is. So they're trying to simulate human intelligence using learning from data, and it comes also with rules on how to use that data, and then applying reasoning, which is basically how and when to use this information, what makes sense when you put these two pieces of data together, and what conclusions might happen and what self-corrections need to be done in order for us to recommend a solution, or for AI to recommend a solution for you. Now, AI has three different types. You have ANI, and then you have AGI, and then you have ASI. And you might think, what are these terms? Well, here they are. Artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial superintelligence. Narrow intelligence is below human level of intelligence, but it operates faster. It's the same way as if you have two people, you ask somebody, what is 2 by 2? They say 4. If you ask them what is 253 times 1,567, is going to take them a while to figure that out, while an AI can answer that as quick as 2 by 2. But it doesn't mean that that AI is smarter, it's just faster. So that's the first level. The second level is equal to human intelligence. We have not reached there yet. We're not there yet. Debatable in some things that might come soon, but we're not there yet. ASI is basically super intelligence. We're talking about AI being smarter than human intelligence. Now, some examples. Everything that you know already, Siri, Alexa, self-driving cars, Face ID, all that kind of stuff is ANI level. Because the point here is that it is focused on one task only. It learns basically from data. Think of Waze, for example, for, like as a navigation system on your car. Waze learns basically data from traffic patterns, rush hour, weekends, weekdays, etc., and then decides on a direction and gives you the best route. But that's only one task. Waze cannot filter your emails on your phone and put spam emails away. So ANI can do only one thing. And it will do it, like very well if you program it and the data is fine and all that stuff, but it does only one thing. Even with facial recognition, that's still one task. Side profile, smiling, etc. And then your photos, you find your photos on your phone can tell you who's who. Oh, that's your parent, that's your mother, that's your father, that's your child. It tells you who's who based on that, but that's one task only. So it is considered to be weak AI with all this hype that everybody's talking about it. That is still weak AI because it is very narrow and it has only one specific task. You can argue that ChatGPT, now they're on level 4, you can argue that maybe by level 10, they could be reaching a level of AGI, but we're still not there yet. Research shows that all the advancement that we've done as human beings in the 20th century, that took 100 years, could have been done 20 years, within 20 years with today's technology. So you can imagine now, as with today's technology, how fast this century is going to advance. So it is possible that we can see AGI and ASI come to life. And if we reach ASI, philosophers nowadays are saying basically that will be the last invention that humans have to make, because you've created something that is far superior to you, like in terms of human intelligence, emotional thinking, everything, efficiency, etc., that it will do everything for you. Do I want to live in a world like that? That's another debate. So how, in this case, AI can help us to make the transition into CX easier when we have a large number of customers? You have, for example, virtual assistants is one area where AI can help. Bank of America, for example, and Digibank, they use virtual assistants to analyze customer spending and to recommend financial solutions that can help them save or invest in ways that match their lifestyle. You have also another use, which is transactions pattern. What are you spending money on? Like what bills you're paying, how regularly. And then that determines if you are really good for credit card or you're good for a savings, like account to approach you and try to sell it to you. So transactions patterns make it possible for banks to give their customers the right kind of experience and the right kind of offers. Predictive behavior analytics is another area. So in this case, based on the pattern of what you've been doing through your transactions, most likely you will be doing this and this and that in the future. So I can then recommend solutions that will be more suitable for you. You find that, for example, with Uber Eats. They've developed the technology in a way where they know around this area on the weekend, in the evening, like chances are X percentage of residents are going to be ordering a margarita pizza. So they've already sent the orders beforehand, before anybody orders them, have them being made, and then AI makes it possible that these predictions are quite accurate to a point where somebody has already made the order at that time, and then that pizza goes to them faster, which gives them a happier experience, a better experience. So risk management and fraud prevention, or here you have, for example, and in the UK, regulations are very tough when it comes to opening an account. So usually because of anti-fraud regulations. So Virgin Money, for example, Virgin Group, they have Virgin Money as a kind of like a banking financial solutions. And Virgin Money used to take 2 weeks to open a bank account for someone. But now they can do it in 15 minutes because of AI. Using AI-driven processes, they can process data and verify documents a lot faster and more accurately. I recently, bought the house I'm in, and the entire paperwork I've done, including ID verification and everything, I've done it on the mobile. It takes a picture of me, compares it to the picture in my ID, and knows that this is me, and done. So things are really moving fast in that direction. Another area is personalized recommendations. So, for example, we have Ocado here, which is like a supermarket, but it doesn't exist. It's only in physical space. It exists only through the service of delivery. And it signs up, it partners with other suppliers to provide the products. So think of it like as your online supermarket. Now, they analyze our purchases, what we buy, what we don't, what we like to get, how often we buy what we buy. And they even prepare a cart every week saying that most likely these are the items that you need, or that you most likely have run out of, considering your pattern of usage. And they even send emails, and they send sometimes free samples saying, we think that you might like this new product, considering the history and our purchases. All that is possible because of AI. There's no way that they can do that with customers, as they have millions of customers. They cannot do that without the help of AI. Another area is automation in operations. So, for example, Fifth Third Bank, a bank in the US, basically uses AI in personalizing their relationship banking and internal processes. So they managed to reduce a 46-step cycle that took 90 days to just 2 days. ING, the Dutch bank, they have AI-driven operational processes that allow a much easier and faster customer account opening and onboarding process for new accounts. You have also First Nation Bank. They use AI platforms to automate reconciliations and multi-format documents processing, 100% accuracy and efficiency. Now, these are things that customers don't see, but this is very much innovation that affects service design and the customer experience as a result. So these are areas of how AI is being used in CX. Now, it's not easy also. There are challenges in there, and the challenges are plenty in this example, in this situation. One is measurement. Measuring CX, AI is driven by algorithms, but algorithms can be misleading. And CX, as we talked about it, is a perception, a mix of thoughts and feelings. Measuring that is a challenge for AI. So that is one area, that measurement is one area where AI becomes a challenge in CX. We're also still at baby steps, ANI level, weak AI. So communication is limited. We've all seen chatbots that make us go crazy because it's not understanding what we're trying to communicate. So, this is still early stages. Ethics is a huge issue in AI. What algorithms, what data, what material you will use, all that affects how you process, your data and how you manage it. transparency, personalization versus privacy. Also, when customers now are more and more using chatbots and using AI, ChatGPT and all, how will they think about the brand? Will they feel more connected or less connected? For example, when you talk to ChatGPT, do you say please and thank you? The same way that you would make that request to a colleague, you would say please and thank you. And if you become less polite because you're dealing with AI and it's not human, will that make you, more difficult as a customer to deal with? Again, there's no right and wrong about this. I'm just throwing issues for you to reflect on and think about. There's also regulation in terms of compliance. AI, requires regulation. Central bank in Kuwait and has not touched this at this moment. Or maybe it could be in the process of doing so, but this requires heavy regulation in terms of what is doable and what is not doable, because it's very easy to say, no, we don't want that kind of intrusion to data, we need to maintain privacy, while in reality, actually, you don't have access to that data. AI does the processing, away from you. You're not aware of what's happening in that regard. Language is another barrier, is another challenge. Arabic language in particular. In Saudi, I know that they're doing more development in AI in Arabic, but it's still in baby steps. And in Arabic, we also have layers of complexity, because not only we have the classical Arabic, but we also have dialects. So, that level makes it sometimes difficult. Imagine a chatbot trying to chat with a customer on WhatsApp. Are they going to use classical Arabic or are they going to use dialects? How do we know? What if in this case the customer who's chatting is somebody who is Arab but not from the GCC? Will they be comfortable? Which language or dialect will they be comfortable with? So there are layers there of complexity. Culture and identity is another one. There is a westernized influence of AI because of the fact that it's coming from the West, but it's pushing you to behave in a certain way and to think of a certain way as far as your customers and your business is concerned. Are we becoming more internationalized and less local by implementing a lot of AI? There's another factor that will happen in the near future, and it's happening now. I had a conversation last week with a client before the holidays break, who was saying, this is somebody who's savvy, tech savvy, knows exactly how to use all the technology and all that stuff. But he said, I don't want it sometimes when I use these chatbots, they tell me to go online. The information is available on the website. I don't want to go to the website. I want a human to talk to. So what happens is, as businesses move more and more towards digitization and automation, the human effect is going to be, and human interaction is going to be something that is missing. So you are reducing the human interaction by increasing AI use and digitization. So these are big challenges that address that we need to think about when we talk about AI integration. And there are also bad ways of using AI in CX. For example, relying heavily on AI without the human oversight. Lack of transparency in AI algorithms. You're not explaining to customers how you're getting that information. Poorly designed chatbots, which lead to frustrations. So these are bad ways of using AI. Again, we're not saying wrong, right and wrong. We're saying good and bad. So these are bad ways of using AI. Now, these are some current and future trends that I would like to share with you. We were talking about voice recognition, biometric authentication, AR and VR applications, hyper personalization, financial wellness, tailored offerings, and the human effect. These are current and future trends in banking, okay, that are happening. Most of them are outside, the GCC, but there are a couple of examples that I'll share with you now that are from the region. Okay, but I want you to keep in mind the word trend doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means that it's happening or will happen soon. Okay. So, for example, NBD in the UAE bank, they verify customer ID through their thumbprint to speed up the process at the branch, which is quite handy for older customers who might not be necessarily tech savvy and can do online banking and all the other stuff, and they still need to go to the branch. But in order to sit and verify IDs and double check and make sure that it's the same, all that stuff, as soon as they actually walk in and do the thumbprint, that's it, their ID is verified and they can just sign and do whatever they want. You might say, well, come on, this is not ideal. Again, if it's ideal for a key segment that they have, then it's ideal for that segment, nobody else. Okay, but this is a way of how using, there are others who are using voice recognition through the phone. When you're talking to your bank, now your voice is enough to verify your identity. So they don't need to go through security checks with you. Now, of course, that raises other concerns, but I'm talking about, again, trends. So RBS, the Royal Bank of Scotland, they uses AR, augmented reality, to better explain mortgage options to prospects by immersing them in that augmented reality experience. They can understand the point more because there's more visualization. And that allows them to kind of like understand what they're committing to, considering that mortgages take years to pay. A local example, NBK, and I know we have people from NBK today, used virtual reality, VR, to simulate the branch experience. Now, probably, of course, customers had to wear a set in order for them to be able to experience that, which might not be 100% comfortable. But the next step would be, how can we do the same without these devices on our faces? And that's something tech companies are working on developing at the moment. Hyper-personalization, we talked about it as examples of making sure that everything that you do is personalized to each and every customer, and that can happen only with the help of AI to analyze behaviors. Financial wellness is another area. Now, that's an interesting shift, and that's happening in banking. In the industry, the impression in general about banking is that, yeah, they're greedy, they just want to, like they care about their profit, and they will, if I say hello to them and they say hello back, they might charge me a fee. So that's the general impression. But what's happening in the US, the UK here a lot, and some other global market spots, is that banks are shifting their proposition. They're actually focused more on how can I help our customers to be financially, make better financial decisions? How can they be financially well? How can I use AI and give them a better experience to analyze their behavior, help them to save, help them to invest, help them to do this, help them to do that? I'm still profiting as a bank, but I'm profiting while the customer is profiting as well. So that is changing the perception of the brand in the customer mind of saying the bank is on my side because now they're helping me to do well financially. That's a huge shift in the relationship and the feelings about banks. And more banks are heading towards that direction. And then you have, of course, tailored offerings. So you have somebody who's a constant shopper, so they might benefit more from discounts on shops rather as a loyalty point or a benefit that you want to give them, rather than offering them something that deals with, bonds or, like you're not fitting their lifestyle. So the offer has to reflect more into what they need. So in this case, you might say to them, look, if you do the saving for 3 months on this deposit, it will allow you to be able to, have this much money that allows you to shop more, because that they're from their pattern that they're shopaholics. So you're trying to encourage their behavior for their benefit and yours, but in a way that it's a win-win rather than win on one side. And using that requires what is called predictive analytics, which is basically you have to have a proactive approach rather than reactive one in order for you to offer these tailored offers. And the human effect is going to be a future trend. What happens is with the increased use of AI and digitizations and banks that don't even have branches because they only exist online, sooner rather than later, what happens is a cycle. As everybody now is going towards digitization and drops the human interaction, people are going to miss that human effect. And then banks are going to start saying, hey, you can always chat with us as humans. We're here for you. We can talk, hear human voice. Come to the branch and interact with a human. You're going to find that cycle coming back again as a quality. Right now, you don't see it as a benefit or advantage, but in the absence of that quality in the future, that becomes a point of differentiation again, and then we will find that cycle integrating. The idea is not to replace AI to replace humans with AI, but it's actually to integrate the two together. I want you to understand that when we talk about its futures, not future, and by futures, I don't mean it in the financial term. I'm just talking about the fact that it's multiple sense of a future. Early on, there was a comment about different segments and different customers. Each segment has different needs. Each segment has different needs and behaviors, and their expectations from the bank can and will vary. Therefore, the bank has to prepare itself to operate at various levels. Now, if you're, for example, like NatWest in the UK, a bank that's 300 years old, has 19 million customers. How can you offer that level of personalization without the help of AI to break down all this data? And at the same time, how can you expect that all customers want the same thing? No way. There's no approach, not even AI, can give you one solution that fits all these needs with such numbers. So NatWest is using AI to connect all systems that they have, legacy systems, with new ones to guide them on when and how to communicate with each customer and what their needs might be and what to offer them. And they're doing that flawlessly and easily without the intervention even of humans analyzing this. But of course, there are teams that are supervising and executing. But the actual crunching of data aggregation and analysis and clustering, that is happening super fast without the need of humans to do that, because it would take forever. Great CX is the ultimate goal. Great service design, not digitization or using AI. So the idea is not for you to leave today and say, great webinar, now we need to really get AI into this. No, the focus is, even if you have all the AI tools in the world, what kind of experience do you want your customers to have? So you still have to go back to service design, and you have to find ways to differentiate yourself. Then you use technology to help you execute that very easily, effectively, and efficiently. So it is not about digitization. It's not about AI. I'll give you an example that does not involve AI whatsoever. Tesco is a large supermarket in the UK. They have every Wednesday and Saturday from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. they have something called Quiet Hour. In the quiet hour, when you go shopping during that time, I want you to imagine yourself now in your favorite supermarket. You go on a Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock or Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and you're able to have a calmer shopping experience. No loud announcements, no large, noisy trolleys pushing around. The lights are slightly dim for those who have sensitivity to lights. Audio is dimmed, and again, no big announcements for people who could be on the spectrum as in terms of autism, or it could be for people who are just sensitive, or they want just peace and quiet. They don't want the noise. And that allows them to shop comfortably in an experience that works for them. So no AI involved, but they understood the need of those customer segments, and they catered to them in that way. Now, that started in the pandemic, but then they ran with it since, and they said that's permanent. Forever is going to be like that. So the future always going to be, the focus is on the design. What kind of experience do we want to give people? Then we can, as you, all of you are large organizations, or most of you, then it becomes using technology to help us scale. But you have to figure out first what kind of experience you want to give your customers. If you want to learn more, we're not done, but just a quick reminder that there's a lot more to that. If you want to know more about CX and in my school of thought and how to communicate that with KIBS, we are doing a short one-day workshop, which is going to be 4 hours live online and very interactive. It's not a lecture in that way. It's learning by doing. And then there is a 5-day masterclass, 4 hours each day, filled with exercises, and that will be in May. So get in touch with KIBS if you want to join those events. And if you want CX to be for your departments, for your teams in-house, then of course get in touch and we'll be happy to talk about that. This is me, and this is my son, Sheikh, and this is in Athens, in Greece. I've read about Athens. I know the history. I've seen shows. I know about the Olympics. But there was nothing close to being there, having interactions with Greek people, talking to guides on site, to understand where I am in the history of the place and what happened. This, for example, is the stadium, the first Olympic stadium where the first Olympic opening took place. It's called the Panathinaiko Stadium, and it's the only all marble built stadium in the world. And the first Olympics took place there in 1896. So why am I showing you this? Because it's important to immerse yourself in something in order for you to learn it properly. And the Greeks, funny enough, ancient Greeks, they considered that all subjects, human subjects, are a form of verbal communication. So that means if you want to understand biology is not plants and animals and human organs. No, biology is the words that we choose to talk about plants, animals, and human bodies. So the ancient Greeks, they considered that a subject is a form of discourse, as a written and verbal communication. And based on that, all education is a form of language education. So to that I say, to understand the subject is to know its language. We need to know what CX is, what service design is. To speak it, that means we understand the subject. However, to deeply learn it, you have to practice it in context. You cannot spend your time attending courses and say, I understand it now. You understand it as a topic, as a subject, but to deeply learn it, you have to practice it. That's the only way for you to really grow with it. Because we have a few minutes left, I would like to ask you to direct the last 10 minutes or so that we have by you answering this poll. What would you like us to do? Would you like us to answer some of the questions that we have, and we have a lot of pendings, or would you like to hear more examples? Oh boy. Okay. I'm seeing the majority have spoken. Right. So I see most of you are saying, let's have more examples. But I'm going to mention a few examples, but then I'm going to leave room to a couple of questions because it's important to get some of these questions answered. As you can see, 74% said let's have more examples. Of course, it's a short amount of time. There's a lot more to talk about, but this was just to give you a quick overview. Right. If more questions, if more examples is what you're looking for, then let's do that. There's an example I can give you about JP Morgan Chase. They basically use Coin, and there are a lot of providers and platforms. Pega is another one, OfferFit, Coin, Contract Intelligence, that can help banks and organizations to get these systems up and ready, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. JP Morgan Chase, they use it to basically automate the review of legal documents. Usually when you want to apply for, your customers want to apply for a loan, there's a lot of process and a lot of documentation to go through. And what they've done by using AI-powered contract intelligence platform, they're able to significantly reduce the time and effort required compared to a manual review. So that kind of automation enhances the efficiency and accuracy of the legal process, rather than to have to wait a long time for, like as a customer, for you to get an answer from the bank. Now you might say, well, nowadays we are actually quite good at that, like we can get loans very quickly. Well, as needs differ, as more documentations are required, or as time becomes more of an essence, you want to reduce it. I'll give you another example from Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo basically employs sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is basically when they go to social media, they go to their own channels, WhatsApp, emails, all the different ways of, like their contact centers, and they aggregate all that data. They try not to understand what XYZ are saying, but they're trying to look for keywords. What is the general mood nowadays? What are most people talking about when it comes to us? They do that along with, of course, data from research that they do in surveys and all that. But interactions, social media, and research, combine that together. They use AI to analyze this, and for AI to reflect any kind of issues, concerns, or just positive feedback. This is working, protect it. So in that way, it becomes they become faster in addressing things that are frustrating customers. And that's a great way of doing that, because the larger the organization, the slower the actions are usually. So technologies in that way are allowing large organizations to become more agile. One final example is basically Bank of America. They use customer sentiment also, mainly from these channels and mining the data, but to focus on customers' emotions, specifically emotions when it comes to them. And they're looking for ways of how they can change that perception and implement changes in the branches or online that can refine their services and provide, and they use that also to provide additional training to staff to improve the quality of the interaction. So what's happening is that they're getting a lot of insights using it that way, because one of the things we talked about and you guys answered in the poll was not understanding the customer's needs very well. Well, using technology in that way is much faster than hiring a research company so they can do months of research so they can come back to you and they say to you, the needs of customers are so and so and so. These are some examples of how AI is being, or CX in the future is currently being used, and how it will continue to grow in the future. Before you go, I want to answer a couple of questions, but also before we do that, or after we answer a couple of questions, Kibs will give you a quick announcement from Suhaib about your certificates.
Yes. First of all, we would like to thank everyone. I think they are very interactive. I'm hearing even through my WhatsApp, some of them, they are asking me here and there. So thank you for being engaged, honestly, in this session. And thank you, Loaay, for your time. Let me go to these questions here. We have a couple of questions, but I will go from the beginning and pick the right ones, or let's say the most important ones. From Ahmed Al-Eid, he's asking what initiatives or technologies are being implemented to build and maintain trust with customers in the digital age while maintaining a human touch. So what do you think, Loaay?
Right. In terms of We covered a lot of examples today that that talk about what organizations can do with customers as far as CX is concerned. However, trust comes from transparency. So it's important that organizations are transparent with customers, really break down to them, how are you handling that data? So so customers can understand that there's no invasion of privacy. Aggregation and nosing around are two separate things. Communication is key. Educating customers on transparency and how you do what you do is important.
There's another question from Ahmed Al-Eid. How can relatively smaller banks responding to the competition, bigger banks? So what's your opinion on that?
Well, there are, of course, larger banks are acquiring fintechs and other startups. A lot of banks now are hiring people who, funny enough, they are starting CX departments, but in reality, they should be starting service design departments because, again, CX is a perception. If you focus on your service design, then the CX will be great as a consequence. So if you cannot hire such people, collaborate with people who can guide you, who can coach you, who can help the team to understand this. That's another way of trying to compete. However, technology, most of these are available from providers that are accessible to everybody. So technology has democratized the competition in a way, or performance, and leveled the playing field. So now smaller banks can compete with the larger ones.
Yeah. Honestly, Loaay, I want to add something regarding to this on this context. Honestly, I like the example that you said about the quiet hours for the supermarket. Yes, I totally agree and believe that related to what we faced through the pandemic, that even our customer behavior, and either us, if we are, let's say, the provider of the service or the user of these services, we notice the change or shift in the human perspective of everything around us. Social media has an impact, the AI has an impact, all the new technologies. It made us think a little bit about how we, as a service provider, want our customer to perceive us, and in order to do that, we have to check ourselves from the eye of the user. Related to the banks, because we are living in a very small community in Kuwait, and comparing, I liked even the statistics that you made in comparison to us in Kuwait, related to the pool that you did for the international, let's say, companies or vendors. There is a huge difference in the international Europe and the States. They are thinking that there is a sharp competition between the vendors of the services or banks or whatever. However, here we're thinking about other things, how customer will perceive us. So that means we have a very small market. We can control it by checking what the customer needs. So we can think from their perspective in order to change our way of delivering these services. Related to this, Hamad Al-Umani has a question related to how we can, or how to elevate or monitor the customer experience based on what's mentioned. How to elevate, what's the strategies or what the methods that you can just
well, I think there are a lot of things, and probably we talk about them in depth more in the masterclass, because you have 5 days, we will be able to answer that in depth. But if there's a quick takeaway that I can share with everybody now, put down any fires. So if you have anything that is, like making things difficult, frustrating customers right now, fix them. That by itself is immediate improvement and enhancement to your customer experience. It's not about the wow factor. It's about really understanding what customers want to do. So not necessarily, Mazen is saying streamlining processes. Yeah. That by itself can be a challenging, like task and overwhelming. one of the great ways to be able to do things faster is to actually break down to smaller teams rather than think on big department level and the entire bank. Break it down to smaller chunks, try to deal with burning issues. That will lead you to continuous improvement and innovation. I'm wary of the time, so I will take one more question before, so I can talk to you about these certificates.
Yeah, let's take a question from, I think we have, how can, let's say Francis said, how can organization from strategic partnership and collaboration within ecosystem to leverage complementary technologies?
Telecom, for example, is a great example of such collaborations. Telecom don't really invent their own technology. They constantly collaborate with Siemens and the likes, as vendors who provide for them the technology, and they just have to choose what they want to apply in order for them to compete. Similar thing with banking now. There are so many vendors who can help in that. You don't have to build everything alone. You can take advantage of the ecosystem in order for you to, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child, and I'll say it takes a community to raise a brand, to build a brand. So, you need to collaborate with others. You can't just do everything internally.
Anything you want to mention, Loaay, before we conclude?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. It's been really a delight. Thank you for the comments, the questions. I know that there are more questions to ask and more to answer. I'm happy if you want, by the way, you can go to theoutsidersperspective.com, book a free 30-minute session. If you wanted to ask more questions, I'm happy to answer them. You could do that. I would like to really thank KIPS again for this opportunity and making this webinar accessible to the community in that way. It was very generous of them to do that, and the Suha and her amazing team. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the collaboration and the preparation and the time. You really care, and I can see that in everything that you do. Thank you all for attending and for participating. I hope this was insightful and helpful, and you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you, Loaay, and I would also like to thank the team of KIPS who worked heavily with us, even in rescheduling the event. That was an amazing effort from us as KIPS and even from Loaay team. So thank you so much. Thank you, the participants, and we are available, of course, to ask us. You can connect with us through the LinkedIn, through the website. The website of KIPS. We have all the details there for the next coming programs. And if you are interested for the master class and the training program for the CX, please email me or Hamad or Maryam. Hamad and Maryam, they are responsible for this event. So maybe we can do something for you as an organization, maybe specifically, because Loaay can customize a program, or maybe you can participate in our next coming master class and the training. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you in other programs. Thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Make a good one, as Loaay says. Bye-bye.